Good evening, everyone. My name is Eryn Stewart. So why is this solar project here? Well, we know that we can harness the sun's energy to produce electricity in this case scenario, but also heating. Solar technology prices have dropped significantly, making it that much more affordable. We know that technology like this is suitable for the northern environments. And in this case, this project here is a hybrid system with solar and battery backup with a diesel genset in Colville Lake First Nation in the Northwest Territories, 60 kilometers into the Arctic Circle. And we know this project and projects like this help mitigate the impacts of climate change. So we know all of this information. But when we talk about sustainability and mitigating climate change, clean energy is one of the first things that we talk about, whether that's energy conservation projects, community-wide retrofits, or renewable energy project integration. And it's great to talk about these things, but when it comes to action, that's where many people get lost. We end up focusing on the why this is important, rather than the how do we accomplish it. So, I've been using this term, clean energy paralysis, and if you haven't heard it before, it's because I made it up a couple weeks ago to describe this state. And just for clarity, by paralysis, I don't mean a physical state, but rather a state of mind or an emotional state. We want this energy change. We know this change is needed, but we don't know how to do it. We become paralyzed in the idea of actually getting involved in the energy sector. And no wonder, energy projects are complicated. Energy systems are complex, which creates even more barriers to entry. Take this very simple, generic example of typical roles and responsibilities of governments, energy boards, regulators, and utilities for a renewable energy project. And it's hard to understand, yet alone explain to the average person. And in this diagram, there is no technical jargon, there's no immense amount of documentation goes around it, but it's still complicated to understand. To add to that complexity, we have many energy bodies that are also facing a type of clean energy paralysis themselves. Large, centrally controlled energy bodies with concentrated and limited ownership for others. Governments that make the rules and regulations of the energy system, making it hard for communities to be involved. I've spoken to far too many communities that have only found out about an energy project because it's been a press release saying there will be one there soon. So back to this photo. What is missing in this photo? The answer is people, communities, the human component of energy. People help us understand the hows of projects, not just the whys, the trials and tribulations of a project, the development process, and also the limitations of our energy systems. They also speak a similar language to us, not just technical, but understanding how to do a project from soup to nuts from a community's perspective. There are over 155 projects over 1 megawatt with a significant Indigenous involvement across this country. That makes approximately 25% of the electricity system, and something that most people don't know that is significantly higher than municipalities. These people, these communities, have valuable knowledge that needs to be shared with others, and I'm talking not just about the success stories we see in the newspaper, but the full story of how we got there. So in my work, I have the utmost privilege with working with some of the most incredible people that I've ever met in my life. I have the honor of running a program called the 2020 Catalyst Program. It's an Indigenous National Clean Energy Capacity Building Program. And through this work, we aim to demystify the energy sector by providing mentors, resources, and networks to support Indigenous communities leading their own projects. Thus far, it's been quite successful. We've had 82 participants from every province and territory other than PEI come through our program. Of those 82 participants, 38% have been women, 32% have been women, 38% have been women, and 22% have been youth. They've been as young as 20 and as old as 75. We've had chiefs, councillors, economic development officers, and even an ex-premier go into our programming. From the furthest west in Haida Gwaii to the furthest north in Taloyak, Nunavut. And these individuals come with varying backgrounds, educational, personal histories, and career paths, but they all have a passion to take on clean energy projects in their community. I want to talk to you about a story, tell you a little story about one of my dear friends, Grant Sullivan. Grant is a Gwich'in man from Inuvik, Northwest Territory. And Grant had some of the worst clean energy paralysis that I've ever seen. He had so much self-doubt and a sense of imposter syndrome about working in the clean energy sector. He felt that he didn't belong. And that frustrated me immensely because I knew he was so capable. Grant knew he wanted to get involved in a couple of different projects across Gwich'in Territory. And for those that don't know, Gwich'in Territory spans across the Northwest Territories, the Yukon, and into the eastern parts of Alaska. But he didn't know how. And every time he went to energy conferences, he left even more confused and with yet still more questions. So he joined the program, our programming, in 2016, and after going through it, Grant came out with a huge level of confidence to get his projects done. But Grant didn't go and just do a couple projects as he had initially intended. He did many, many projects. Grant launched a keystone project called Diverging from Diesel, which is a study that looks at the avoided cost of diesel across all Arctic communities. He also did 30 residential solar projects in his community and hired local staff, 2 community-scale solar projects, 6 biomass projects, has 4 solar projects in the end. In his spare time, him and I co-authored a book for the Arctic Council on community energy planning across the circumpolar Arctic. And he just received $1.3 million through the Indigenous Off-Diesel Initiative to install even more projects. Yeah, I know, and a mouthful for me. And there are so many other stories like this, and it shows that people have an abundance of potential if they're given the right tools and resources. So why did I tell you this story, and what does this all mean? The energy sector is complicated, there's no doubt about it, and difficult to navigate at times. However, difficulty and challenge is not an excuse for exclusivity. It means we need to create more spaces in the energy sector where people feel empowered to create, to collaborate, be given the ability to learn without judgment, to be motivated and inspired. We also need to make sure those individuals have the skills and tools they need to move away from the why should we do it, into the how do we do it, and into the when should we do it. We cannot change the energy sector without a fundamental change in the way that we think, act, and include others in that change process. Through our experience at ICE, Indigenous Clean Energy, we've also learned that you can't make assumptions about what people can and cannot do. A transition to the clean energy future requires the hands of many, so let's remember, communities count and people count. If you'd like to learn more about some of our initiatives here, you can find out more at the 2020 Catalyst program. We also host free monthly webinars on icenet.work where you can learn about more Indigenous clean energy projects across the country. There is also a TV series called Power to the People, and if you'd like to read a very interesting 300-page document about community energy planning in the Arctic, please check out that as well. Thank you.